The Joe Rogan Experience.
As breaking news just today, Marineland had built this fence, aptly named Phil's fence, around the park. And just today we found out they blacked it all out with tarps because come this Saturday, May 18th, and certainly I'm inviting everyone to come join me. I'll be joining as a guest, a big demonstration outside of Marineland, and we're going to protest it as they're anticipating, because on account of my coming on this show, they worked very hard to try to keep me from A, coming, B, speaking of anything, C, certainly not promoting this event. So I certainly hope that this event is a well-attended.
How did they try to do that?
Well, because we're in litigation, what happens in litigation is you come to a point where you start to negotiate. And so there's things that they want from me. There's things they really want from me. They want my silence. The problem is they're never going to silence me. It's not an option. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They can offer me $1 million to shut up and go away. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to delete my Twitter. I'm not going to delete any of my tweets that have the word Marineland in them.
Is this a request?
This is layers and layers, and there have been layers of requests. Basically, they'd hoped that I wouldn't come here. They'd hoped something could be worked out. In our litigation, we have, so now I chased Marineland. So back when Marineland's owner was still alive, I put forth a huge campaign to try to get him to be examined legally by my lawyer, much like I've had to sort of submit myself to. But as these lawsuits and as litigation continues to reveal itself as just a perfect method of abuse, you know that they're just the only resolve these things appear to serve is to exhaust both parties and have them come together with a resolution. So after 6.5 years, Marineland seems intent on a resolution. They don't want to go to examinations. So while I was there to be examined a couple weeks ago, my lawyer said, take a walk. And the two lawyers began their talks. We put off the examination because we believed there could be some good faith that could be shown between parties. It became quite evident that it was not the case. And when we were to resume our examinations, which was to be last week, Marineland, on account of the fact that I was coming on this show, threw an absolute tirade and said, we are not doing this. Now, bear in mind, this is a court-ordered examination date. I've got a trial coordinator who is trying to nudge this thing forward, because I mean that's a motion I had to win in the litigation itself, is to try to get someone to look at this thing so that it can actually move forward. Like, let's get someone to manage it. So we're in case management. So that case management judge has issued a very aggressive schedule. Back in February, we had a court date of which, thank you very much, I won handedly. Marineland had to pick up just a little more than $12,000 of my legal bill, which is really on this particular motion in this event, kind of a drop in the pan, but nonetheless, a sound victory in court. We have a case conference call next week now. I don't know where this stands because now Marineland has breached the court's order. So we went, they didn't show up to the examination. I got a fourth, what's called a certificate of non-attendance. It means the person that was supposed to be examined that day didn't show up. Marineland's owner, John Holer, who's now passed away, didn't show up to two of his examinations, knowing full well that I'd have to pick up the $1,700 to just to be there to get the certificate, and he's just not going to show up. No big deal. There doesn't seem to be any punitive damage at their end. I mean, we're almost 7 years into this thing, and they're still like brutalizing me. But we're at a point where they're actually in a very uncomfortable position of having to keep this thing. If you don't want this litigation to be on the public record and transcripts and evidence and everything, you have to stop it. It seems to me the courts appear to facilitate resolutions of that sort. They like settlements. I was promised a trial on day one. It's what kept me going. They're lying about me. They're lying about everything. Everything they're saying.
And they're trying to exhaust you financially.
Well, of course they are. I mean, that's the premise.
And are you countersuing them as well?
I'm countersuing. The premise of my countersuit is so that they couldn't merely drop the lawsuit against me over a period of time and then that just be it. And that I would then have to actually file a motion to get some costs back. I'd be lucky to get 50% and everything. in the early days, my lawyer said, let's sue them back. And so we did. I'm suing them for abuse of process. They're using the court's time, resources. Even for that matter, we can extend that to the police and other departments and organizations. They're exhausting these things in bad faith. They're doing it because they just want to try to, basically they want to take away my right to free expression, which is a Canadian chartered right. I mean, I'm protecting my own history here. I mean, this is insanity. I can't even believe that after 6.5 years, I'm still here at risk of being silenced. That the fact that, look, full disclosure, I'm out of money. The last time I was on this show, we raised, and again, thank you so much, 60, maybe almost 70,000. That's in a year and a half. That's gone. I spent my last penny last month. It was a very aggressive last 3 months.
Do you have a GoFundMe?
I have a GoFundMe.
Give out the information.
Yes, please.
What is it?
It's if you go to savesmooshi.com, SAVESMOOSHI.com, you can go there. There's a small documentary. It's a little dated now, but on account of the fact that nothing's really moved forward in the lawsuit, and the legislation is only just wrapping up. It's still very current, so please spend the 14 minutes to sort of appreciate the story more. I guess you'll get a better, more context to it. There's, some footage in there, some backstage stuff. It tells the tale quite well. It's a good piece.
Yeah, folks, if you're hearing this, please help it out if you can.
Joe, I say it all the time. It's the thing I hate to do most is ask for help. It really makes me.
Well, your intentions are pure. You really are a person who is going about this because you feel like you are uniquely qualified to talk about it. You have the actual information. You know what's wrong. You know, and you are part of the system. You understand it better than anybody on the outside could.
And they have my Walrus.
And they have your Walrus. Still, we think.
And so when in the litigation, my lawyer says, "Well, here's what Marineland's prepared to offer." I say to my lawyer, "But what about the Walrus?" And he says to me, "Dude, we talked about this. This is crazy. You're not getting a Walrus." And I said to Marineland, I don't want no money, not a penny. I want the Walrus. There's 2 left. 3 have died in in mere months. Secretly, I find out.
What would you do with her?
Ideally what I would like is, I just want her transferred at this point to another facility. I would love to see her transferred to the Vancouver Aquarium, or there's a facility in Quebec as well. I just want to possibly be in her life. If she needs me, there's a reason she's one of 2 still alive. If I would accommodate, listen.
Would you move to Vancouver?
If suddenly Dan Bilzerian gets on the horn, says, "Phil, I got this." Well, actually, wait. There's a backstory to that too. I actually got some beef with him inadvertently, but we'll get back to that. But if he were to suddenly say, "Hey, I got this Arctic beachfront home, and dude, I'll buy you a Walrus," yeah, I'll move. Absolutely. She's got another 10 years of her life, dude. There's only one way I want this story.
To be with this Walrus. Play the music.
Is there a better end to the story? Really, it all sounds so crazy, Joe. But here, 6.5 years ago, I was like, I want the Walrus.
Right.
Suddenly, here I am negotiating for a Walrus. Call me crazy, but look
so
at
are they willing to negotiate for the Walrus? Is this actually in consideration?
Yes, but not without layers and layers and layers of compromise. But bear in mind, not in the capacity that I see it. More of a, maybe. Maybe we won't send her to China. How's that? Maybe we'll send her somewhere and not deter that facility from you visiting. Maybe we could do that for you. That's what it's really bad faith negotiating. The problem with the thing that I have a hard time dealing with is, look, we're in litigation. In litigation, you have to exercise a certain amount of decorum, and it's not exactly my strong point. It's just not. I find decorum to be just a thick layer of bullshit. I just do.
Yeah.
You want to hope that there's going to be some type of good faith negotiation. I want that. Marineland negotiates with additional hostilities and threats. It's not worked for them in 6.5 years. What makes you think it's going to work now? So here, I think we're going down a path of possibly good faith negotiations. The owner, the villain of the story, is gone. He's out of the picture. The new president, who is the widow, the wife, is a wonderful woman. Listen, if I honestly and truly believe if the lawyer himself wasn't the controlling mind of the business now, he's sort of facilitating this transfer of the business as it was to just being sold off, pieced off, and distribute the wealth to the remaining family members. I think that we could I think this story ends on a good note. I mean, I have no hostilities. You know, I have every reason in the world to despise the man who sued me. And I don't. I don't even think about him. It was never about that. They made every case in the world, every argument that this was personal between me and him. And
Well, that's because you look in the camera and say "fuck you" to people.
it's personal between me and Don Plett. You can bet your ass. That's a different story.
But you know what I'm saying?
Did I make him famous?
Well, you in a way,
Maybe.
yeah.
Maybe.
So, where do you stand right now?
Well, I don't know. So next week we're having a case management. The case manager is going to talk, and we're going to see what becomes of Marineland's once again skipped examination.
It's so hard to believe this is still going on,
Dude, welcome to my
from
fucking world.
the time you first came on the podcast to now. That this has been just this scratch and claw.
Every day of my life, I live with this looming cloud of threat of like, there's people out there that really want me. I'm not talking physical threat. Okay, they played their games. You know, I called every one of their bluffs at every corner of this thing. But you know, there's something about
When you say
someone-
they played their games, like
they
there
sent
was-
goons to my house.
Yeah.
There's video. In fact, there's on that documentary, you'll see these. They send some tough guys. I mean, they were sending people at 6 a.m. harassing my girlfriend while she's taking the garbage out. I mean, it really got pretty intense. But we stood our ground. I was like, this is not going to go down like this. It's like, you're fucking with the wrong guy, dude. Like, listen, I come from a place called Welland, Ontario. I don't know that you're familiar with it. I'm going to assume not. Probably few people are, unless you're an avid hockey fan, because we have produced some pretty amazing NHL talent. But, you know, there's a population of like 50,000. I'm a Wellander. I don't know any other, and I'm a Frenchman. I mean, it's probably another thing to stress, but I don't know any other way to deal with things other than to sort of fight it out. You know, you don't cower and run. You don't, you know, you stare the threat, especially when you're on the right side of things. I'm not going to sit there and take shit. It's not going to work for them to continuously try to threaten me because, dude, I'm invested and I'm not talking money. It's like a hostage situation. It's how it started. My only interest is ending the hostage situation. Not my only interest. I shouldn't say that. Of course not. I have interest in you know, I've been advocating for bills and obviously advocating, letting people know that, you know, sort of taking the veil off the bullshit that the industry
But you
purports
feel
to be.
like you're negotiating for a hostage in Smooshy.
They're using her as that type of chip.
Yeah.
That's their
Right.
bargaining chip. That's what they got.
And they're keeping this constant pressure on you. This constant financial
Additional
pressure.
threats, constant. My lawyer, in fact, and this is where it gets kind of weird because, listen, I don't understand. He's supposed to be representing me. The answer is no to everything. Fight, fight, fight. I want a trial. He instead is coming with, listen, this is not how litigation ends, Phil. Like, you don't seem to understand how this ends. You don't have a grip of how litigation works. And I'm just like, I'm glad that I don't, because my guess is I'm representative of about 90% of the population that don't know. And it's important that we find out. I was promised a trial because they said I was this. Well, let's get to that fucking trial. This is what I've been doing. This doesn't end with negotiations. I want the trial.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, why would you sue me unless you want the trial? Oh, because it's a bullshit lawsuit. Well, then I want the trial because I need to show that. I need that on my record. I want that. I want the truth. They fucked with the wrong guy. I hate to say it. I'm the only, of all the lawsuits they've launched, and they launched in excess of like 12 and threatened. And it's important to note I've been threatened and I'm constantly under threat of additional litigation. I'm the only one left. I'm the only I'm the only person who hasn't had to compromise their free expression. It's
a dirty secret about the legal business, right? This is a loophole. This is something people can do to people to silence them, just to drag them through hell for 6 years.
Maybe 10. Who knows how long this goes?
Right.
And this is a case managed. I mean, I had to fight in court at great expenditure to get this case management.
And if you put this up to the general public and had them look at what the actual facts are and had them look at what these people, what their business is, what they're actually doing.
It's game over.
It's game over. It's a real problem for them. The real problem is it's an indefensible activity. Having those animals in swimming pools for people's enjoyment, like...
But to follow that up with trying to crush people, trying to crush my fiscal sovereignty. I mean, look.
No, there's nothing good on their side for what they tried to do to you, for what the business is.
I like to operate in full sort of transparency because, look, I guess I'm sort of sponsored by the public, so I feel like a level of transparency in all this. But, I had a little bit of money. I'd won a TV show called Wipeout, and I had 50,000 Canadian dollars tax-free in the bank, which I sat on because I didn't know precisely what it is I was going to do with it, and I felt like there was the potential of a rainy day around the corner. It took that in the first 6 months to hire lawyers for everybody. Everyone that was getting sued, I was cutting $5,000 retainers for, going, there's a purpose for this money. I only have it because I got on the show because of my relationship with the Walrus. So I'm in for a good chunk of change here. It's crazy the lengths of which and the ability corporations have to destroy individuals. The fact that the court is there to facilitate it is precisely why I want to go to trial. I've been told the figures are, and please don't quote me, and I'd love the facts, but I've been told that something in the area of like 90% of lawsuits get settled without going to discovery. Well, I want to be the 10% or less. I want a resolution by the judge. I can sleep at night if the judge says, okay, it ends with this. Phil, you get $50,000 of your, at this point, in excess of $200,000 in legal bills, and Marineland, you lost. So, you got to eat the shame and walk away. I would be more comfortable with that than if Marineland said, here's $100,000. Don't talk about the, let's say in the best scenario, they said, here's a chunk of change. Let's just use $100,000 and said, just don't talk about the terms of the settlement. But other than that, you have no impeded speech. You can just be free. I would be more comfortable with the judge's decision than that $100K, because then at least I know exactly what it is that I went through. The world can find out what function these courts have and what their version of justice is. I'm trying not to be jaded, because obviously it's a heavy load to carry as in your day-to-day. It's, I've been on the cusp of crazy. I'm thankful for plant medicine for sort of keeping me grounded and keeping me in with the proper perspective. But
plant medicine, listen to you, hippie.
Yeah, well, they do try to call me hippie a lot too. That's interesting. I'm a little bit of a different version of hippie, I suppose.
Yeah,
I don't mind war.
Well, you're a guy who cares about these marine mammals.
Now, Walrus is like my daughter, dude. It sounds
believe
crazy.
you, man.
I hate to stress it, but it's just
I
as
know.
soon as you consider that factor, you're just like, dude, they've got your daughter. That's a mess. Just try to put yourself in the perspective that if they had your dog, your neighbor's got your dog and is unimpededly, by your definition, abusing or neglecting their life, and you're there to just watch silently. That's disgusting. That's a disgusting scenario. This is the poison that I live with. I need a proper closure. I'm relying on there being a level of justice so that one day I can live in this world without being just that old jaded dude. Look, last time I was here, it was not nearly as fucking gray. Like, I'm starting to feel the effects of long-term litigation.